Boom! Texas has a linebacker commit in the 2026 portal cycle. It's Justin Crier from Florida State. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by CJ Vogel. We'll be talking about the latest Longhorn commitment here on this edition of On Texas Football. CJ, Justin Crier, a Texas kid from Brookshire Royal, right outside of the Houston area, started 8 games for Florida State this past season. Texas, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Linebackers, a position where they needed to get bodies in the portal, and they got him one in Justin Crier.
Yeah, they did. They did exactly that. They got themselves a body at a position of need. And look, linebacker is going to be one that they continue to focus on moving forward. But with Crier, you've got experience. You've got a guy that's been around the block at a big program, right? ACC football, Florida State. We know that's sometimes it's a high level of ball over there, Jeff. But more than anything, it's a guy that's played a lot of football before and a guy that should serve as a rotational depth piece for the Longhorns that could contribute into a high ceiling guy as the season goes on in 2026.
Yeah, you look at his production through his first 2 years at Florida State, played in 22 games, 44 total tackles, 2 TFLs, 1 interception. But then this past season for Florida State, he played in 12 games, made 8 starts, 43 tackles. So basically this year in one season, he pretty much matched his production from his first 2 years, 5 TFLs, 1 sack, 1 quarterback hurry. But CJ, this is more of a replacement if you want to look at it like that.
Yeah.
I see him taking on kind of the role Leunga did as more of a kind of C-gap to C-gap run stopper. He can be in on passing downs, but ideally this is a guy you want on the field on first and second down. It might not sound like a big deal, but that is a need Texas has at linebacker.
I like that. I like that fit there for Leunga. You know, Leunga in theory kind of took the spot of David Benda, right? You know, and so there's been that need for a linebacker that can come in and play the run or stop the run and ultimately just provide another body in the middle of the field. Because we also talk about it, linebackers, you know, important in the sense that one of them is the quarterback of your defense, but they're all in essence running backs of your defense, right? They get hit the most. Their shelf life is very short. They're all very important, but ultimately you can never have enough and you never want to be thin at that position. So adding a body with that amount of experience, Jeff, and coming back to Austin, I think for Crier is going to be really important. I wanted to focus on that as well. Let me get your thoughts, but from the Houston area, his brother played basketball at University of Houston. LJ Crier, now with the Golden State Rockets, athletic family, now headed back to state of Texas for what should be one final year of football.
Yeah, and you know, when you look at him, his Pro Football Focus numbers, his run defense grade was his best, 69.1, which PFF considers anything at 70 above average. So he's basically an average to above average run defender, which is really what Texas needs. And CJ, I like the size too. You know, when you talk about a guy in the SEC who needs to be kind of that C-gap to C-gap thumper, that first and second down kind of run stopping linebacker, 6'1", 232 pounds is what he's listed at on the Florida State depth chart. So we'll see where he's at by the time the 26 season starts. But again, you know, it's interesting with the transfer portal. A Houston area kid goes all the way to Tallahassee. Then with the portal, you can come back to Austin. CJ, how do you like the rest of that room, though? You add Justin Crier and Ty Anthony Smith. One of the things that we talked a little bit about, and I think this is similar to running back, you know, at running back, you want to take some guys so that you can put a buffer between Derek Cooper and the field where you don't have to rely on him early. I think we could say the same thing in linebacker about Tyler Atkinson. He's going to play, and you hope that he develops into somebody who can get a lot of snaps. I just think in a perfect world, Will Muschamp just wouldn't want to take a true freshman and say, hey, bud, go sink or swim starting with the opener.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And look, I think we all know that Will Muschamp is going to like himself some Tyler Atkinson, right? Who watches that tape and says, not for me? I would say probably no defensive coordinators or guys that have coached the linebacker position, Jeff. But to your point, do you want to rush him in to play right away? I'm sure if you ask Tyler, he'd say, I'd be ready, right? I'll do what it takes to get on the field immediately, as every freshman would. But in the sense of what you have to do as a coaching staff in terms of easing him in, making sure the game isn't too quick, making sure that he is understanding the reads and where he needs to be on a given play, that's very important, and that takes time for young running backs, young quarterbacks, young linebackers. It's all the same for the guys in the middle of the field. And so I think you're absolutely correct. And I think even beyond that, I think it's a great opportunity to not have to rush a Rocky Cummings or a Kosi Okpala, guys who figure to have high upside ability in that linebacking room, but also allow them to stick on that developmental course. And I know I'm talking about development here, Jeff. and that's been a hot topic here.
Mhm.
But a guy like what Texas is adding here, I mean, it just makes all the sense in the world to make sure that your youngsters are able to stick to the course of what they want to do in terms of getting ready and not being rushed onto the field.
And Justin Crier, CJ, you talked about the experience. 381 snaps he logged for Florida State this past season, 737 in his career. And, yeah, I think everybody, me, myself included, is excited about the potential of Rocky Cummings and Kosi Okpala. But between Anthony Hill and Linebacker Fowl leaving, CJ, that's almost 1,000 snaps from last season that are gone. Similar to what we talked about with positions like the offensive line. Yes, you want to get high priority targets that can come in and give your room some upside, but you also, just so you don't have to rush these young guys, you just need an experienced body who can be, at the very least, a rotational depth piece. And I feel like Texas, it's just a solid foundational piece in that room you had with Justin Crier.
It's a stabilizer, no doubt. And again, go to that room, right? Anthony Smith is the guy that we just watched against Michigan, coming away with 2 interceptions. He was all over the field. You get really excited about what Hurricane will be able to do in 2026, but he needs some bodies around him. As I mentioned, look, not even Anthony Hill in his junior year was playing every single snap of every game. So you got to have guys that have been on the field that can give you 20 to 30 downs in a given game. And I think Crier gives you exactly that. So for Texas, it's all about manufacturing that depth. And that's the other thing. For what we've seen and what we know of a Will Muschamp defense, he's going to get the most out of his guys. What does that mean for Crier, a guy who we kind of think leans more towards being a guy that you rely on in the run stuffing game? That's going to be really interesting for me, Jeff. So I'm interested to see how he's used, but altogether, you can't be upset at another body being used or being added to this linebacking room.
If you go back and look at his first spin at Texas with Will Muschamp, some of those defenses, Roderick Muckleroy, kind of in that Anthony Smith role, really kind of the heartbeat of the defense, the guy who, if they had the communication at the time, it probably would have been Roderick Muckleroy. And then whether it's Rashad Bobineau or Dustin Ernest or Jared Norton, you're kind of moneyballing it based on, scheme or whatever the personnel you're facing, whatever the fit is. You can kind of fit different pieces. I know the game's a little bit different. You want a little more position flex, but I feel, CJ, like you're starting to see the pieces come into place where you're starting to see the linebacker room at least make sense now.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And again, they're not done out of the portal. I like to think that Texas is still going to be very aggressive when it comes to finishing and concluding the rest of that linebacking room. Of course, you need multiple bodies, probably up to 8 or 9 in this room, knowing that you're going to see a lot of rotations and you're going to be very aggressive with the deployment of these guys on a Muschamp as well.
All right, CJ, thank you for the knowledge and expertise. As always, thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. I want to remind everybody, if you haven't gone over to ontexasfootball.com to take advantage of our Portal Madness special, you can do so right now. Your first month of access at ontexasfootball.com for just $1. We can only cover so much here on the channel. Everything we get up to the minute information, we're posting it over at ontexasfootball.com. And again, you get your first month of access for just $1 over on the website. For CJ, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, and for the newest member of the Texas Longhorns, Justin Crier, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until next time, welcome.